Hey everyone, good afternoon. We are so excited to be here with you this Friday. I want to firstly take a second to introduce myself. My name is Bernice. I'm the regional director here in West Central Florida with For Our Future. So if you're in the Tampa or St. Petersburg area, hey, you're one of my neighbors and super grateful to be working in an incredible area and part of the state. I would love to take a second to introduce our amazing guest that we have with us today. We have Lisa from the Common Ground Project. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm awesome. I'm really, really glad to be here with you all as usual, and excited to talk about our conversation today. So, thanks for inviting me into this discussion, and looking forward to digging in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, and I also want to introduce my colleague David. Can't forget about you. You're also on here as well. How are you doing today, David?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Really excited to be here. Happy Friday to everyone watching live. Yeah, really excited to get to be here. I'm David, he, him pronouns. I'm in the Central Florida or East Central Florida area regional director for Greater Orlando. Here to talk about Senator Rubio and what his record has meant for our state.
Yeah, so real quick, we're here to talk a little bit about the senator and some of his votes that have been harmful to our state and votes that he could have done that would have been advantageous rather to our state. So we're going to spend a little time digging into some legislation and talking about where Rubio was on that. So we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So Rubio and the 2017 tax cut. So in 2017, Senator Rubio supported Trump's billionaire tax cut. In 2021, he's refusing to support spending money to help working families. And so just thinking about the impact that Rubio's had when we have tax cuts for the billionaire class, when we have working class families that are paying more money in taxes than billionaires, like that's a problem and they're struggling at the same time. So I'd be curious to hear, like from David and Lisa, any kind of thoughts that you have on the tax cut and the role that Rubio had in that.
Well, Bernice, I think it's really important to also bring in the perspective of not only in 2017 did Senator Rubio support a tax cut for billionaires, but now we're post-pandemic as well, right? So now in 2021, when working families across the state who have elected him, who pay his salary, he is actively preventing, support that we desperately need across the state to recover from the pandemic. So, it's not just contrasting the where the follow the money, and clearly he's listening to some supporters, I would imagine, of who got him in office, but also I think that it just is very it's even more disproportionate when we look at it now, because we are post pandemic. We're still in recovery, still very much part of our communities, and we need this now more than ever. So I just wanted to add that in as we look at this.
Yeah, and I'll add too. I mean, here we have 2017 versus 2021, and it's already like a genuine tale of two Rubios. Like, we're starting off here, and trillions of dollars impacted through this, and then all of a sudden, here we're talking about spending on real people, like not like the 1%, and it's all of a sudden concern trolling about how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for this? Oh, I couldn't possibly support this kind of spending. And just 4 years ago, we have this that was said is going to pay for itself, not even a justification beyond that. And lo and behold, it didn't. And when it comes to these, the what's currently on the table this year, it not only could it pay for itself, but it'll get paid for by reversing this mistake from 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about like just Rubio's record and when he votes no on things. So we know recently Rubio voted no on some key legislation that will make tangible impact on the lives of Americans, like the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the American Rescue Plan. So let's talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan. It did just so much for our families and our communities. Firstly, direct payments to folks during the pandemic, like that was huge and life saving for some families who had been out of work or were unable to pay their rent and stuff like that. So just thinking about the impact of the American Rescue Plan. We can go to the next slide. And how it just impacted so many folks in our communities. To me, the fact that he voted no, this wasn't even necessarily like a partisan bill. This was like, hey, we're in a literal crisis right now. We're in a pandemic. People are desperately in need. How can we help them? And that's what this was about. It wasn't about like, hey, Democrat, Republican kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, would love to hear thoughts from David and Lisa about how y'all are thinking about like the American Rescue Plan. I know it did so many things. So direct payments wasn't the only thing that it did as well.
Yeah, I think that, when we look at the American Rescue Plan, it's a response to what we've gone through as a nation, as Americans, right? Not red or blue Americans, but as Americans under a catastrophic pandemic. And when you see this plan in place, it also helped to address inequities that existed pre-pandemic, right? So this was a real opportunity to invest in the American people, in the people of Florida, in hardworking families, and and then also to help address some of the inequities prior to the pandemic. So I think this was, back building back better, right? This is how we can do better for working families across America. The middle class has continued to be, squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And this American Rescue Plan, it came in, it helped parents, it helped children, it's helped us create jobs. And I just think that it really laid a solid foundation for our nation and our state to really, succeed and to grow our economy. And we know that when our local businesses thrive, not just the billionaire and corporations, right, but our local businesses thrive and our working families thrive, then we all do better. So I really think this American Rescue Plan was just such a critical piece of legislation. And when you see someone vote no on something that can be so helpful to so many people across the state, then we know, this is just pure partisan politics, and you really don't value the lives of the people you represent.
Yeah, 100%. I, looking at what the impact already has been, and the fact that we can really point to this point of legislation and say, yeah, that's actively reducing child poverty. It's cutting it in half, right? And going forward, we're looking at what it would take to extend that, to keep that going. And knowing that's the case, we can very easily say that Marco Rubio wants to double childhood poverty with his stance on this and his stance on not extending it. So that's and we'll be interested to see what he postures in the course of the next year in terms of saying, well, look, we're doing great here in Florida because of policies I didn't vote for. And points like that. So that's I think something to look out for, especially if it comes to claiming credit for anything that came from policies that he rejected.
Yeah, and speaking of policies he rejected, let's talk a little bit about Medicaid expansion. And the American Rescue Plan, which we just spoke about, Rubio voted no on, it actually offered incentives for states to expand Medicaid and bring health coverage to millions of low-income families across the country, but particularly in Florida, there's hundreds of thousands of folks who are uninsured who could use desperately this coverage. That's $3 billion that's on the table that because of our legislature, we're not able to use. And so we know Rubio is against this, and it's unfortunate that he's often making choices that impact our family's health as well.
Yeah, Bernice, and I think that, you know, when we think about keeping our communities healthy and what you're able to do when you have preventative care, and it's not just emergency care response due to lack of coverage or insurance, then again, just, you know, circling back to one of my earlier points is we all do better when we're able to get out ahead. You know, I think offering folks insurance or the opportunity to see doctors and get in there and really get ahead of illness versus treating it in the emergency rooms or not treating it at all. You know, we've seen it again during the pandemic. It just swept across Florida, but this has been something that was intentionally broken years and years ago. And I think that, just there is no excuse to not offer Floridians across the state money that's on the table or an opportunity on the table to take care of themselves, to take care of their children. And also, you know, that just goes back to creating a more healthy state and creating some opportunity for folks, you know, to really be successful and thrive.
Bernice, here cannot be. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm on mute. Oh no, I thought I was talking the whole time. I was actually gonna move us to our next topic, which, speaking of opportunity, is talking about the child tax credit. So the child tax credit is providing direct payments to families every month and is helping over 65 million American children, which is huge. Rubio, unfortunately, does not support extending this program. And what we've seen is families have used the money, we could go to the next slide, to invest in themselves and in their children. 40%, 47% used at least some of the funds for food. 28% used the money to help pay down their debt and ease their economic burden. And nearly a quarter purchased clothing for their children. So we're seeing this money is reducing childhood poverty in real time. And it's incredible to see. And it's unfortunate that our senator does not support it because, once again, it's not a partisan issue to support children.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see here and kind of want to note that, like, of all these high percentage things, we're not seeing like a high percentage of it go into, like, you know, offshore accounts. And it's actually going back into the economy. This is what drives the economy. If you're not, if this is just sort of being like, you know, we don't have parents buying back stocks from their family or something like that, like that, this is actually having a direct impact on lives, and also it's moving things around in the economy, which means that it's going to be a benefit, and this is the type of thing that does, in a general sense, pay for itself, and it is helpful across the board.
Undoubtedly. There's no, family that I've met that can't use support with their children. And I would encourage the senator to come out into the community and do some of the work that we do on a daily basis, and then come back and sit down and have a chat and justify voting against something like this, because I think that no matter what neighborhood I canvass or door I knock on, there's not a parent that I have met in the work that I do that couldn't use this help. And we are using it for investing in our families. We are using it to take care of our kids. It's, I'm not going on any lavish vacations, but we are basically just making ends meet. And, most Americans are one crisis away or one emergency away from bankruptcy or, economic devastation. And I think that when you have just a little extra money coming in to help with groceries or to help buy clothes or whatever it is that your family needs the most, put a roof over your head. This is just a critical piece. And just, I would love to understand how you would justify voting against something like this.
Right. Absolutely. Especially when it comes to do with children, it's like, how can you? It's terrible to see. But unfortunately, we found that Rubio, time and time again, is voting against our interests. And so, with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we are seeing historic investments that'll be made in improving our roads and our bridges. So it includes money for transit and rail, upgrading airports, ports, waterways, because America's infrastructure is falling apart, believe it or not, compared to majority of other countries. And so these investments are needed. This is a bill even Mitch McConnell supports, which is crazy. Mitch McConnell supports this, but Rubio does not support it. That just blows my mind when thinking about this.
And especially living in Florida, where we're constantly impacted by hurricane season year after year, where we're talking about improving roads, and also if you think about folks who are taking public transit to get to work, there's a lot of streets, even walking to the bus station, that aren't paved or don't have lights, and then we are falling apart with the infrastructure. But particularly in Florida, I would be interested in investing in infrastructure where we do have a lot of impact from the climate, and I think that we need to upgrade, not just repair, but upgrade, as we've seen, unfortunately across the state this year. So it just blows my mind, as you said, that even Mitch McConnell would support this, but Senator Rubio, for some reason, in the state of Florida, would still, cross his arms and stand in the corner. It definitely blows my mind.
And we can move to the next slide. And just to share a little bit more about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, it has bipartisan support. So there's a reason why we call it the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So more than half of voters support the package. So 56% of voters support it, which is amazing. And 77% of Democrats, 52% of independents, and 37% of Republicans, which I think is, for Republicans, that's a significant number of folks who are interested in spending money. Because normally right away you say spend money and they're like, no, we don't think so. So it's amazing to see people are thinking about it. They're thinking about their commute and that pothole that's on the way that has messed up their alignment on their car. There are real life costs to this. So the fact that Rubio doesn't support it is just mind blowing, given the broad public support that it has.
Yeah, and I think infrastructure seems to be such a unifying factor too, because everyone knows what it ultimately means, especially when you're talking about physical infrastructure. It means that like you mentioned, the potholes in the roads are going to get fixed, and so you're going to have a smoother ride. And for a lot of folks, it's also a question of internet access. The fact that a lot of folks don't have broadband, and that's going to be a huge impact. And those are a lot of times in rural areas that are otherwise frequently thought of as conservative homes, and so that's why it's something that has gotten a lot of support across party lines, and even more of a shock as to why it's not, especially just knowing the impact that it has here in Florida, with climate resilience and much more, and we're counting on much better votes and just much better representation than what we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to move us to our ask. Of course, we can't let you go without giving you guys a call to action. So we are having a letter to the editor workshop that's coming up next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. We're going to drop the link in the comments. Would love to have you join us. Really, we're focused on spreading the word about President Biden's Build Back Better agenda and how much it's going to improve the lives of working class families in our country. So we'd love to hear and take your personal stories, and let's get them published, and let's get the word out into the community about just how important this legislation is. So I'd love to toss it to Lisa for the last word. Lisa, how can folks stay in touch with you and Common Ground Project?
Yeah, we can. You're always welcome to join us on Facebook, as you see, with Common Ground FLA. We will be having a lot of upcoming events. We're helping get the word out about how folks can continue to access the vaccine. And we have a lot planning for, as we approach the holidays, helping making sure that our communities that have been the most vulnerable and most impacted get some support. So just check us out there. And also, I just want to echo what you said, Bernice, when with the letter to the editor training. I encourage everybody to join that. Get your stories out there, get them published, because personal stories are just one of the best ways to reach your neighbors and communicate with folks who don't necessarily consider themselves to be, super political. And you don't have to be out to dinner on Friday night and be the person busting in with all the political stories and stuff, but personal stories are just so important. It brings a realness to how legislation like this can really help folks, and I think it's one of the most important pieces of this work. So check us out on the Common Ground Facebook page, but also just definitely join that letter to the editor. And also, it's just really cool when you see your story published. It's really powerful. So
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting that, and thank you for having me on today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. We are so grateful to have you on. It's always a pleasure and a joy. We got to start having events like exclusively with Common Ground, I think, because we're on together so often.
Like, we'll just do a Friday happy hour every week.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We hope that this was informative and shared a little bit about policies that Senator Rubio unfortunately did not support for our health, our safety, and our families. We encourage you to take action and join us at our LTE training next week, and hope that everyone has an amazing weekend. Thank you so much.